in the Wall Street Journal recommended that they start by tossing the Federal Communications Commission, the FTC, the SEC, the Department of Agriculture, the Postal Service. Yeah, give it to UPS. Give it to, give it to anybody except them. The Labor Department, HUD, the Interior Department, the VA. Yeah, vets need the money. Give it directly to them. And, of course, the EPA, just to name a few. Now, keep in mind, the Department of Education is also very much on the cutting board.
I'm sorry, what? Get rid of the Department of the VA? Get rid of the Veterans Affairs? Yeah, that was Sean Hannity the other night going over a op-ed that was written for the Wall Street Journal by an ex-hedge fund guy, of course, giving suggestions to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, of course. And one of the ideas they're tossing out is, you know what, let's just get rid of the VA. Can't they just go to hospitals like everybody else? 10 million veterans. 10 million veterans in the healthcare system, the largest single healthcare system in America. Let's just close it down and throw those guys out on the market. A lot of reasons that won't work. I'm Fred Wellman, host of On the Line with VoteVets. You're here with us live. Again, we're back. Which is one of the goals of doing our Friday night show. Again, it's been 3 weeks since you saw us for a host of reasons because some stuff happened, I've guys heard. But we wanted to get back online again, reaffirm that VoteVets isn't going anywhere. What we do, why we do what we do, the kind of things we see already that we're going to be facing in these coming months and years. And frankly, the success we did have this season, because I know a lot of us are focused very much on the loss we suffered at the top of the ticket and some other struggles with the Senate and the House. I mean, there's a lot going on, obviously. But the truth of the matter is we worked very hard for a great set of congressional candidates. We worked hard at the state and local level. We've got Travis with us to kind of talk about some of the wins we had. So we're going to go through all of that so you can see what we're doing, what the plans are, and why the fight is anywhere but over and anywhere but lost. And so that's what we're going to go on with. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw, what we're facing, some of the things you're hearing. I think JJ, we've got a clip one to show. I mean, there's a lot to deal with, but I think this is Max Rose, right?
He is going to wage war against much of what I think Americans collectively hold dear, some of what really angers them. And they're going to proceed along this road where I think as they start to break institutions, as they start to break norms, we're going to realize that there were things that we relied on that we didn't even know that we relied on. And just the last point, though, it was not a week ago where the Trump administration proposed a purity test for the incoming administration proposed a purity test for generals, that they said that they're going to review 4-star by 4-star by 4-star and see whether or not they are truly loyal. That would be an absolute threat to our national security.
Yep, that's our senior advisor, Max Rose, talking about the things they face. Some of the things that we have heard already, I think we've got some slides, JJ, are crazy. This is the damage these bright ideas will have for us who are veterans in the veteran community, the military family community. Right now, 30% of federal employees were veterans. Compared to a total of 5% in the civilian. In the same year, 25% of the new veterans hires have been veterans as well. When you start cutting federal employees, that's who you cut. The largest employer of disabled veterans is the U.S. government. And they're hurt. The UPS, which you heard, Sandy's, they want to give it to USPS, want to give it to UPS instead. 73,000 veterans are employed by the USPS. So when you talk about when they throw these numbers out, when they throw these ideas out, this is the kind of impact it's going to have on those of us who served, our brothers and sisters who have served, your parents, your grandparents, your kids. There will be a very deep impact of some of these decisions that right now we're seeing are just sort of being thrown out into the wind. So it's a great time to bring in my friends. We got a great crew. Of course, General Paul Eaton, who is the chairman of the board and senior advisor for VoteVets. My friend Travis Teslar, who is our what is your official title? What's your official title, Travis? What's that?
Political director.
Political director. There you go. So, clearly, it's been a long week. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to On the Line. We're glad to have you, Paul. Let's kind of start talking to you. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. We've heard you've been talking a little bit. We've put out some stuff about, for example, this idea they've put out of a board to review and sort of purge the 3- and 4-star generals for essentially wokeness. I mean, it's a pretty scary thing when they talk about things like that, isn't it, Paul?
Well, they're talking a different kind of woke. their kind of woke and our kind of woke are very different kinds of places. Our job is to ensure that we've got the best fighting force in the world, that we are integrated, that we are diverse, that we have included the best and brightest young men, young women to create a stunning force. And when you talk about these purity boards, they call it a warrior board. Make no mistake, we've got the warriors. They want to root out the people who may not sign up for fealty to Donald Trump. That's what they're after. So what you're going to do is create two sets of leadership for the armed forces of the United States. You're going to have those few who might sign on to fealty to a future 47. And you're going to have those who will continue to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And those who are found wanting by these purity board members, and these guys are going to be retired generals and admirals, and they're going to be brought on board. And if you recall, the 124 retired generals and admirals who signed the letter indicating they didn't believe that the 2020 election was valid, and they also didn't believe that President Biden was fit to serve. So, yeah, you'll find some of these cats out there, but their mission is to get rid of some of the best and brightest young men, older men, and women, and it's just it's not going to play well. And I'll just say, we've seen this play before. The Russians did it during the early days of World War II. Stalin ran his purges. The Russian army that came down to us from the Soviet Union, but Soviet army was largely Russian army. And we're watching the Russian army flail around with Ukraine right now. So what they did back in the 1940s, they're still living with. So be careful as you go.
Yeah, and that's one of the many issues, right? Isn't it? So, I mean, we've talked about using troops on the border. We had this statement about that purge board and how serious it is. I think we'll probably have a show just dedicated to that. There's been discussion of using our troops to deploy in support of in a national emergency to start actually being part of this deportation process. I mean, that's going to have serious implications for our military. You got a couple of these statements. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of these things coming out. I guess before I don't go too down in the deep, sir, but VoteVets has got a very specific mission, don't we? You've been with us for ever, I mean, our mission, it feels like our mission's not going away anytime soon, is it now? Is it?
So, Fred, you're spot on. We have a mission, and it's to get veterans elected to high office, bottom line. And we support a lot of elections. And Travis and his methodology of keeping track of our metrics and to show how well we're doing. I know we're going to talk about that, but we lost the big one, and a tragedy in my eyes, but we lost it. It's past. We're going to do the after action review. We're going to find out what happened. We're just going to move forward, and we are looking forward once we dissect the events of the past. So this organization is all about what can we do to make this country led by the best and brightest that we can produce. That's the mission, and we do it.
And we focus on veterans, military families, and of course national security. And there's discussions with Ukraine. Obviously, there's threats for Ukraine under a Trump administration. There's threats for our military, their military families completely. There's talk the Veterans Affairs going away, right? I mean, as we look at the things we've heard in 2 weeks, right, sir? I mean, it's a whole list of all the things that VoteVets fights for, isn't it?
The first thing you have to do when you run into a big set of problems is prioritize. So it's a tough prioritization problem. This is when you're going after the personnel systems that they're talking about, you're going after these purity boards, when you're going after the nominations that we've seen for defense, for DNI. We've solved one with the AG gone, but we've got plenty of opportunities in the future to put the great men and women of VoteVets to work.
Yeah, speaking of those nominations, Pete Hegseth is being talked about for DOD. We've got of course DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. Whew, Pete's book is full of while he is a veteran, he has got some really interesting views towards Muslims, towards women in combat. Obviously, we were big. I know, sir, you were part of the big fight to get women access to combat roles and equality in the military. It must be unnerving for somebody who's served as long as you have to see that back under threat again, isn't it?
So 400,000 women serve in the armed forces of the United States. When you look at the active force, National Guard, and reserves, 400,000, 20%. We cannot do it in this country without women who have proven themselves over and over and over again. Secretary Austin was brilliant when he laid it out. They make us stronger. And to have the nominated Secretary of Defense immediately serve notice to 400,000 service members that it's okay to work the office, but it's not okay to be a trigger puller. I just got to tell you, it's a bad start.
Yeah. My phone's ringing off the hook. Messages blowing up about women who've served, women who are currently serving, extremely scared. I mean, they're literally scared of what could possibly happen. I think we have a video from one of our veterans. We had a number of veterans submit videos about some of these issues. I think we have a video specifically about Pete Hegseth, don't we?
Trump has nominated former Fox News host Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense. These cabinet picks are like a scene from the movie Idiocracy. What is going on? But let's discuss this. Pete's a veteran, but he's a TV host, a podcast bro. He's on record saying women don't belong in combat roles in the military.
Straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
First off, women have a long and distinguished history in uniform. I personally served with women in the Persian Gulf in the late 90s for Operation Desert Shield. It was hot, long hours, all of us armed and doing the same job side by side. Has he even heard of Tammy Duckworth, a veteran, a former Army helicopter pilot who lost both of her legs in combat, who went on to become a distinguished member of Congress and more? And you think women don't have what it takes? You can have as many tattoos as you want, bro, but tell me you're overcompensating without telling me you're overcompensating. Very big truck, little vibes. Here's the facts. Insecure men can't handle secure, capable, and intelligent women. Secure men can, and proudly serve alongside our female military counterparts. End of story.
It's so subtle. It was really good, wasn't it? I mean, Tammy Duck was one of our candidates, right? She's been one of our candidates for a long time. You helped her get elected. She's the real deal, isn't she?
Yeah, she is the real deal, and is somebody that that comes really highly requested to travel the country and campaign with other senators. So folks love to campaign with her, and she's got a busy schedule in general elections for sure.
Yeah, I think she just had the anniversary of her shoot down. She was shot down in a sector not far from my sector. I think the RPG took out her Blackhawk. That's a combat role. That is a combat role that women fill as combat aviator, and that's why she was there. And thank God she did, because we need them. We need them. Mm-hmm. They've also talked about now, I guess, Doug Collins, former congressman, is going to be the VA pick. I think we got something on him too. Collins is an interesting guy. He's a chaplain in the Air Force Reserve, which is interesting. He's. Have you guys had a chance to look at him at all, sir?
I have not. I've seen it. I'm conscious of the fact that he's part of the crowd who would like to privatize the VA, eliminate the structure, and bless his little heart. Good luck with that.
Yeah, he was part of the Heritage Foundation crew that talked about privatization and making it. For those who understand, for VA, so one of the battles we've had for our Department of Veterans Affairs for years back and forth is the idea of outsourcing more of our care to the private community. And there is a balance that can be struck, because obviously there's not enough VA facilities everywhere in the country, and some veterans have to travel a really long way to see a Veterans Affairs doctor. So there's this balance of providing outsourcing, what they call community care, in local areas. But the counterbalance is many of the places our veterans are, they just don't have community care either. Okay. There's just not enough doctors. And if anybody, even a civilian, if you're just watching our show, if you try to find a mental health care provider lately, I've got news for you. There's not nearly enough mental health care providers anywhere. So what the VA provides is very unique healthcare based on the needs. And the great thing about a VA doctor is they know that a young guy like me has got a weird bad back because I flew scout helicopters, and scout helicopters weren't built for human beings, and so they know that. And that's why so many of us go to VA care. Another factor that came out with the VA we saw is one of their ideas that Heritage Foundation that Colin supports is shortening the time that doctors see patients. They want to have the same time frame of military doctors seeing soldiers and service members as VA doctors, without understanding that the average age of a military patient is 19. The average age of a VA patient is in the 60s. And those are very different things. So we've got our fight ahead of us for VA too, don't we, General Eden?
Indeed. And you can't forget the scam of privatization and then funding. And then 1 or 2 years later, the funding dries up and goes away, and now you got nothing.
Right.
So so the British tried to privatize their health program for the military. They got rid of their military structure for hospitalization and for medical care, except for a few deployable doctors. But not everybody loves soldiers in Great Britain, and they ran into a real tough time with soldiers getting attacked in hospitals, soldiers who had been wounded, soldiers who were very much in need. So I'm very fond of the system we have. Once you're in the VA system, I've never heard a complaint from anybody.
Right. People like it. It's funny. A veteran kind of came at me online the other day. He says, "Oh, I don't know, VA, man. I had a problem. I went to the ER. I spent 6 hours in the ER the other day." I'm like, that's funny because I live in a major metropolitan area in Missouri, and I went to the civilian hospital. And guess how long I was in the ER? 6 hours. Welcome to modern healthcare. It was like, dude, what'd you think? It's gonna be like VIP service? Like, no, we don't have enough healthcare providers in America, and we're gonna have to fight for them. And of course, the last big nominee we're keeping an eye on is, of course, the Army's own Tulsi Gabbard, who's been designated for the DNI. We put out a strong statement about her. In many ways, she has been flagged. I think she was even on the no-fly list for a little while. The idea of giving our national intelligence top of the head to someone who's been flagged as something of a friend to our foreign enemies. I mean, I know you put a strong statement out here, Paul.
Well, when RTV, Russian TV, loves you and you're one of their best, that's a flag. In most cases, certainly a flag to about half the country. And I'm not sure what happened to her. It's a great mystery. Nobody really knows who she is, except for the Syrians and the Russians. Somehow they've gotten a good hard look at how she thinks and what she thinks. But the rest of us Americans, I'm a skeptic.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, with the foreign ties she has, it's scary to think you have a clearance, but the idea, and then she's gone so far, she has, but giving her the keys to the kingdom is a little bit terrifying. So clearly, I think you're going to be a busy guy, Paul. But we talked about a lot. This first 2 minutes we talked about what we face and what we've been doing, but there's also good things we face, and we've had some success. I want to turn to that, Travis, especially your side, on the political side. We actually did. How many did we endorse? I mean, it was a ton this time, right?
Oh yeah, I mean we had 318 candidates this cycle. Wow. 30 of those were federal candidates, and we had a lot of big successes. I mean one of the things that I'm really proud of, to kind of come back to something that Major Eaton just said, is we got when you're thinking about prioritization, there's an old saying of like who before what. And figure out who's going to be helping you figure out this problem before you dive into the problem. And I think veterans are the folks that are going to help us figure out this problem. And if you look at our 4 frontline candidates, all of them went back, all of them won their elections. Wow. But more importantly, Pat Ryan and Jared Golden. Pat Ryan in New York and Jared Golden in Maine outperformed the top of the ticket by 10 points.
Wow. You got some of these.
So,
Yeah, that's incredible.
yeah. So, and Andy Kim, great, new U.S. Senator from New Jersey. We were with him. I think we endorsed him, 2 hours after he announced, on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So like, we were with him, from the very beginning. And
Yep.
we're super excited that he's assuming that role. Jason Crow, easily won re-election. Definitely been with us for a while. Pat Ryan, like I said, he ran a tough race. He's one of those frontline candidates. And I think he was at the candidate across the country that outperformed the top of the ticket more than anybody else. And I think that there's, at some point, we definitely need to dive into what it is that Pat Ryan is doing and who Pat Ryan is that is lending those differences. And he's been out there talking about that lately too. Of course.
He has. He's talking a lot. The basics that he did to overcome.
Right.
How to be a better candidate. We'll have to get him on the show to talk about that, because we do.
He was one of the first guys to come out and say, that that Biden needed to step down, and and a lot of people thought he was crazy. And and I think that you can look back now, it's like, okay, well, maybe this guy just had his ear to the ground a little bit more than anybody else. And
got to go back and listen, aren't we?
Yeah, he's just he's a good listener. And that's something that we need to pay attention to.
Yep.
Mikey Sherrill. Yes, she's not only won re-election, but just this past week launched her campaign for governor, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes about what 2025 looks like. Yep. Chrissy Houlihan is another one, in Pennsylvania. I don't care where you're running in Pennsylvania, like things were hard this year. And so, even if you're running a blue seat, so we were happy that Chrissy is going back to the House. Ted Lieu, part of leadership. Ted Lieu's just one of our guys, and is a mentor to this organization and to all of these veterans who are both in the House now, but also running. He loves to sort of mentor a lot of the candidates that are out there running, and especially in really hard districts. Yeah. Jimmy Panetta in California came back. We're very, very happy about that. Chris DeLuzio, he's another one, another frontline candidate, very happy to see Chris, coming back, to, a little bit of a nod to what you guys were talking about before. One of the things that's great about Chris, watching him really navigate on the Veterans Affairs Committee last year, because to Paul's point, the PACT Act got passed, and then the Republicans start trying to defund it the very next year. Yeah. And we've already seen that they're trying to defund it. And our soon-to-be vice president, was a pretty easy vote, to consistently try to defund the PACT Act. And so that's going to be a fight that's going to be on the horizon too, as well as some of the big things that you guys, were talking about at the top of the show. Yeah. Salud is another one. Very, very happy that he's going back. Herb Conaway is a new candidate out of New Jersey. He actually ran and won in Andy Kim's old seat. And it's this cascading thing that I love about politics, because you have Andy Kim runs for Senate, Herb Conaway runs for the U.S. House, and now we have a veteran who's running for Herb Conaway's old delegate seat. So nice. It's just it's one of those things that I really love. Maggie Goodlander, she's won a primary, and one of those ones that we're really happy about. We spent $1 million in Maggie's race. And she's going to be great. Jeff Jackson in North Carolina, going to be the new Attorney General. And Nick Brown in Washington State, new Attorney General. Really liking that one. Lisa Slotkin in Michigan. I think that she's one of those sort of bright stars, that we saw, this year that, pulled out a win in a state that we lost at the top of the ticket. And there's also somebody out there talking about like, hey, this is how we need to win, and this is how we also need to approach life in the Trump administration. We need to be strategic, and we need to care about what is reversible and irreversible. Let's be really laser focused here. Gil Cisneros was a former congressman, and now came back and won his old seat. So we're very happy to see Gil back. Eugene Vindman. I think a lot of viewers here, are going to naturally know this name, and hard fought race in Northern Virginia, and he pulled it out, and we're very happy and hoping that Eugene has a long career in the House. Don Davis, tough race. One of those races Don was running against an Army vet, and was getting attacked for his service left and right, and we were helping him out with that, but he pulled it out, and I think he's gonna represent East Carolina for quite a while.
Yep.
And Ruben. Then look, Ruben is this special case for us. I mean, Ruben was a volunteer for VoteVets at one point, and then he ran for state office, and then he ran for Congress, and now he's in the U.S. Senate. It's just mind-boggling, to see him there. And
a Marine Lance Corporal. I used to joke when Ruben first got to Congress. When he first got to the House, I got to tell my Ruben story. When he first got to Congress, we used to joke quite a bit on Twitter. I was doing veterans advocacy then, and we were joking one day about going to 8th and I, and how I was just lieutenant colonel, and they all distribute your scales. Dude, he goes, dude, I was a freaking Lance Corporal, and the commandant has to call me sir now. And I was like, yeah. And I said, well, I don't get invited to 8th and I. And he goes, oh no, I'll be your date. You'll be my date. I'll bring you in. Then he went and got married, so I always give him trouble that he never took me to 8th and I for the parade. But nonetheless, now he's a freaking U.S. senator, and he's gonna be terrific.
And one of the most humble guys that you'll meet.
Right?
I mean,
still the same guy.
Still the same guy. You don't find that many, Harvard grads that are like, you know what, I think I'm going to go enlist in the Marine Corps. It's a little bit crazy. Jared Golden, like I said, not only a hard fought race, but then had to go through a recount, a ranked choice, runoff, and again. He was, I think he came in second in the country, for overperforming or outperforming the top of the ticket. But, I think it's been rumored, it's been in the papers that he's thinking about, all kinds of different stuff, governor and Senate, or even just, sticking it back into the House. But, big win there. Really close race.
Wow.
Really close race.
So let's look to the future. I mean, I've been telling you one thing we wanted to have the show and talk about was, and I know, look, a lot of us, I'm online with you guys watching the show and listening. I know how it's a little bit dark right now. Everybody's a little bit nervous, but you're thinking about us. We're all service members. We're all veterans. We're not really big on doom and gloom. We're really terrible. One of the things I learned as a young soldier, as a young officer, was if you lose a firefight, you lose a battle, you go back, you reassess, you lick your wounds, you fix it, redistribute ammo, right, sir? And then you move back out, right? And we've done that, and we're well equipped. VoteVets is well equipped. But as I've been saying a lot, we've got 30 states with local elections in 2025, not 26, 25. Yep. We've got 2 states with Supreme Court, right? We've got 2 states with statewide. Travis, you're already back in the fight, aren't you?
Yeah, no, we're already back in the fight. And look, we're still, I mean, in some ways, we're still fighting the fight because we've got one race in California, in California 45, Derek Tran running against Michelle Steele, who just every day is inching closer and closer and closer. Just this past week, he overtook her. And I think last night he was up by about 500 votes. And so, we're still fighting that fight and still looking, looking to bring Derek Tran to Congress and to win in that seat. But you're absolutely right. We've got term limited governors in New Jersey and Virginia. And so far we've got two two former service members running against each other in New Jersey, and then there's Abigail Spanberger, running in Virginia. Looks like she's going to be running, unopposed in the primary, which is great. The Virginia, the New Jersey legislature is the lower house, the House of Delegates is also going to be on the ballot this year. Nothing really much to talk about there. Democrats, kind of dominate the legislature there. But Virginia is a different story. And I think that, maybe another show in the future, but it's just going to be the House of Delegates that's up for election. We've got a two-person majority, and two of those people are Michael Fagans and Josh Thomas, frontline candidates. Both won in 2023. Both are being targeted by the Republicans in 2025, and we gotta we really got to dig in there. To your point earlier, there's Wisconsin and Pennsylvania has Supreme Court elections. And we had a Supreme Court election. We had a vet run. Dan McCaffrey in 2023 in Pennsylvania and won. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these elections are going to bring for next year.
And they send a message like Virginia's. Yeah, I mean, Virginia's a bellwether. When Youngkin won 4 years ago or 3 years ago, that was a huge shot across the bow for the Biden administration for a lot of us. So it is a big important race, especially Virginia as a bellwether for the country. And it is kind of the first. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, he's a dictator. We're not going to have elections anymore. We're not doing that here. We're not. Hell, even Hungary still has elections, folks. I'm sorry. We're going to have elections. Okay, it's like, have faith. He's not a dictator. Having said that, we can send a message by winning these elections, right? I mean, I think I saw an analysis today, Travis. I don't know if you saw it, but they just figured out that if Democrats Virginia just carry the districts that had a Harris +8 margin and greater, they will get a 53 majority, right? So there's a strong case that the Democrats could take Virginia, turn it completely blue, and that'll be a very strong message to the Congress, by the way, as they face midterms the very next year, right? We can make a strong statement by coming out strong in 2025, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the case. And look, we've seen this before. You can go back to 2017, in Virginia, that led to 2018, in the blue wave that we saw, so we've seen this before. Trump, seems to be a gift, after he wins, so, I know that like you said, there's a lot of doom and gloom, but everything that you guys, were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, the guy's going to overstep. He's going to overstep, and people are not going to like what he's bringing to the table. And so that's the beauty of U.S. elections. So you every 2 years you get a choice.
I can't imagine a scenario where people lost. A lot of people, especially on the progressive side, like to say, "Oh well, they voted for this." I have not met a single person. I've not met a single person that voted for getting rid of the VA. That wasn't even a policy platform, right? That's not even in the freaking heritage completely. I mean, that's actually worse than Project 2025, right? So there's something to be said when you got Vivek Ramaswamy run around saying, "Yeah, we'll just cut it. We'll divide that money by 100 and give it to the vets." Like, that's not what's going to happen. So it really is. And when you talk about very senior men and women, some of these veterans in their 80s, 90s, for God's sake, the overwhelming majority is in their 60s and above. You're not just going to take away their health care. And then when you talk about, let's not even talk about veterans benefits, concurrent receipt. I've had a lot of veterans reach out to me saying, if they lose their concurrent receipt, so if those don't understand, it means you can get your military retirement and your VA disability. There's talk of taking that away, so you only get one or the other when they're melded. I've had at least 3 veterans messaging me saying that'll put me before the poverty level. I just don't think anybody voted to put veterans in poverty. I don't think so. So we have a duty to carry that voice and be that voice. I told him we answered some questions. JJ, why don't you throw some questions up on the screen and see what we've got? Forgive me. Travis, where do they find these races that we're supporting?
Go to VoteVets.org. All of our candidates are up there, and we don't have links to their websites or anything like that. Unfortunately, I see the question of can you get links? But pay attention to the VoteVets endorse page, and you'll be able to see all of the 318 candidates that we endorsed this past year, or at least all the ones that made it through on election day.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll give you links to our website. We'll give you links to our donate button on that, and you can sign all those lists.
Yeah.
We want you to help, Liz. Thank you for asking. What else we got, JJ? Oh, whew, this is the big one. You guys, thanks for asking. I've gotten this question a lot, gentlemen. And I want you to answer this one, Paul. I've seen a lot of men and women in service. I've had at least two men have reached out to me saying they're joining. They're nervous. They're nervous about illegal orders. They're nervous about what happens. I think this might be a subject for an entire show for us, shouldn't it, Paul?
So the whole legal issues associated with where we are right now and what is a legal order. A lot of Germans found out what orders meant during the Nuremberg trials. And just following orders, that doesn't work real well. Now, the Supreme Court granted the President of the United States immunity for actions taken while serving as President of the United States. Official actions, and technically, but the law and it's precedent-based, and we have a brand new situation here where there's not a whole lot of precedent to tell us the way forward. But you can see this president issue an illegal order, an immoral order that may be legal but is immoral, and now you have a service member look inward and say to himself or herself, do I do this? And you now have a moral dilemma, do the right thing. You have a legal dilemma, go to the JAG and see if we can sort it out. But it is a dilemma that our service members are going to run into very, very quickly. There is something called the Insurrection Act that most folks have heard bandied about the news right now, that if invoked, would allow the president to direct active duty forces to do what used to be denied by Posse Comitatus. Well, we're going to have a lot of soul searching on the military in the United States on what to do or if to do. Then you're going to have the legal structure in the armed forces and in the civilian structure above the armed forces to attempt to sort through what we might find out. We did a war game with the Brennan Institute a couple of months ago, and what we discovered when we're looking for guardrails, and with losing the House, losing the Senate, losing the Supreme Court, and losing the executive branch, that there's a group of 50 governors with enormous powers within the boundaries of their state.
Yeah.
And they each have a state, local security structure, police, as well as National Guard. And our governors, and I played red state National Guard, and I'm looking across the room to the red state governor, and we both looked at the president, and the president looked at the red state governor, and the governor said, we're not going to do that. We do not honor your federalization of the National Guard. Then the president looked at me, and I said what he said. And it was very clear. Now, nobody had a gun to my head, so it was not.
There's a funny thing that,
and so it was a benign environment. But the bottom line is, we've got some really smart governors out there who are both red state and blue state, and I believe these men and women are going to do the right thing.
And I think circling back for this young man, especially a gentleman, if you are, sorry, I'm assuming, is there will be time. I think of an act, if you guys remember when Trump was in the first time during the BLM marches and protests in DC, after the night they cleared the Lafayette Square, a U.S. military helicopter was used to drop down the streets and dust off some protesters. And that was illegal. What those two pilots did was an illegal act. It was against the flight regulations of aviation. I mean, you probably see a helicopter behind me on the big screen. And that was there was a lot of consternation about that. And it is an order that those two pilots should have said, sir, I'm not allowed to do that. within the regulations of Army flight safety and blah, 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 right? And so we're going to have some young men and women think about that. And have the strength to say, no, I'm not going to use my aircraft in such a manner. I'm not going to cross a line against my fellow Americans. And it'll get very difficult. I have hope that the higher ranking personnel are preparing this and will not put young men and women in that position where they have to make those decisions. And that's where outside forces like us are going to have to speak very loudly and say, no, not today. We won't permit this. But we'll have I'll tell you, this is an entire show, and I would love to. I'll probably get some of our lawyer friends on here with us, or just talk about here's
great.
the actions you take. I've got that on the schedule. We'll book that so we can talk more. Any other questions we got, my friend? Here we go. Whew, there you go. All right, we're going to sign off. No, I'm ducking this one. I don't know who wants to take. I'll drive. Look, it's boy, the reasons are many. It's a conservative culture. Let's be honest. Traditional conservative. I mean, when you go into the military, it's a traditional conservative kind of life, right? In the old days, I was a Republican. I was a defense hawk. I liked the Cold War. I came into Reagan. I want to be a Reagan. President Reagan said I need to serve, so I did. So it has been always very traditional. I mean, it's a very conservative lifestyle, right? It's cloistered. They wear a uniform, and when you look at the conservative mindset, if you will, much of that lends itself to serving in the military, I think. So you do have a culture of a sort of a cultural conservatism that goes with being part of the military. On top of that, you've got years of the volunteer army where it's become sort of a family business, right, sir? I mean, you know this. I mean, I think you've got kids that have served, don't you, Paul?
All three.
Okay, so there you go. My son served. My son-in-law serves currently, right? My dad was a Marine in World War II. Matter of fact, Wellmans have served since the French and Indian War. That's how long. That's how much of a family business. What about you, Travis? Do you, Travis? You have a family history of military service?
Yeah, my dad was my dad was Army. My grandfather was on the beaches of Normandy, and my great grandfather was in France. He was an artilleryman in France in World War One.
So it's a family business. Yeah, it's a family business, which is hard in the military, the all volunteer force. It was interesting that you guys, if you want to take some hope, though, what we distinctly saw during the global war on terror was a larger group, the Generation Z, millennials and Gen Zs that came in, like actually Travis, in a lot of ways, younger men and women, actually came in much more progressive. We had a lot of kids come in. They saw people like me building schools in Iraq, and they saw us on TV delivering. They said, oh, wait a minute, I can do good. Because a lot of what we did in the global war on terror, especially in Iraq, was actually building things, right? It was helping civilians. It wasn't just blowing things up. So we had a big wave of what I would say more progressive service members. So I believe it or not, the military is much, I would say, much closer to representing the United States of America politically than you would believe the active military that knows. Now, veterans, especially my Gen X peers, I'm sorry, 74% of Gen X males voted for white males voted for Trump, but I guess I'm part of the 24% that's not one of them. But that's a generational thing. But I would say your military today is much more reflective, I think, of the political status of our country. But it is just sir, do you have anything to add to that?
So when we talk about this, I like to bring up a little bit of humor that's happened to me from time to time in the armed forces. And I was driving a very good friend of mine who I was active duty as a major general. He was active duty as a lieutenant general. And we went into the base that is right outside of Fort Belvoir, Davison Field, to get him on an airplane. And it was just a courtesy. We were doing something together, and we're in uniform. We go to the checkpoint. An MP sergeant looks into the vehicle. We show him our ID cards. And then he says, "Sir, you must be a very important 3-star to have a 2-star driver." And so here, that's what we expect from the men and women in the armed forces. Yes, they understand the chain of command, but it's collegial. And we have the best and brightest educated men and women in the world in our armed forces. So we're going to get this right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not gonna be bumpy. I mean, it's not gonna be not without bumps. I mean, it's gonna be bumpy. This is a very big challenge. We face some big challenges, but that's right. Any of us who have served have seen the best and brightest of us, the people who sign the dotted line and raise their right hand. And it's hard not to. Any of us who've done this, right? I know you, gentlemen, can confirm this. Like when you raise your right hand, you had that oath. The gravity becomes very clear to you as soon as you do it. There's no way to just kind of lightly walk into. It's like getting married, right? You stand at the altar, it's hard to go. Oh, shit, I'm getting married. You know, when you take that oath to the Constitution, and will keep saying that a lot. You'll probably hear that from us a lot this year. It's an oath to the Constitution. It's not an oath to a man. It's not an oath to anyone. It is an oath to the United States Constitution to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so that is going to be a challenging time. The question then becomes of how we face it. But I know here at VoteVets, we're ready, and we're going to back our troops. We're going to offer information like this to those who are civilians and those who are serving, so you know how to help them. But in the meantime, that's our big plan. I think that's really great. I think we've had a nice chat tonight. I don't think we need to drag it out. Thank you so much. We had so many of you join us tonight. We appreciate it. You'll be seeing more of us. We're back. So probably good 2 times a week, maybe Tuesdays and Fridays. Probably you'll see us back here on VoteVets. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about from this crazy purge board. And one of the things we'll talk about a lot, you guys, and then I'll leave you with this thought. And I know you're going to agree with me, sir. The thing about the military, and the reason that VoteVets is so engaged and is going to really be diving on these changes in the United States military is all of us who have served understand that it isn't just today's national security we have to worry about. When you make major changes in the United States military, like a purge board, politicizing it, the young men and women leave. And those are tomorrow's generals. And so when you make a change, like when we had the drawdown, I use the example of the drawdown after the Cold War between 90 and then again back in 94, where we pushed people out as fast as we could get them out. We paid a price for that in 2001 when we didn't have those service members and those experienced leaders. So the reason we are so passionate about fighting these big changes now is that we who have served understand you're talking decades of damage that'll have to be unwound, because you don't. Today's lieutenant is 30 years from now our general, the general. 30 years. It takes 30 years to make a general. So if you've got a young guy who's great and should be in the service, and if he quits today because he wants no part of this craziness, we're going to pay a price 30 years from now. So that's why VoteVets and why my peers here are so passionate about what we do in the fight. So gentlemen, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you as always. Let's guess we keep up the fight. Got lots to do. So I am Fred Wellman, host of On the Line with VoteVets. As I mentioned, we are here live on a regular basis. We're on Blue Sky now. We're going to be pounding Blue Sky, votevets.bluesky.social. If you're not on Blue Sky, we welcome you to join us there. We're on Twitch now. We're going to be everywhere. We know that to have conversations with you and with our fellow Americans, we've got to be there too. So we hope you'll spread the word about what we're doing. Tell your friends about our live shows and our videos. You'll see more of our videos on our YouTube channel from our veterans talking about the issues they care about, like the one you saw earlier. We would love you to subscribe to our channels and follow us on those places. More subscriptions on YouTube means more people see it, and this is going to be an important fight. We need you. You don't have to be a veteran or a military service member or even related to the military in any way whatsoever. Matter of fact, the most important supporters we have at VoteVets are those of you with absolutely no relation to the military at all, because without you, we can't do what we do, because there's only, you're not going to believe this, you guys, there's only 15 million veterans or less in the United States today living. There's only 1% of Americans actually serving. We are a very relatively small population in the United States. So we need all of you who aren't part of our community to be part of our community, so we can make sure our nation's security is free and fair for the rest of our lives. And as I mentioned, generations to come. So where can you find out more about us? VoteVets.org is where you go. There's some great buttons there. There's 2 buttons I want you to know about. The donate button, because without you, we can't do any of this. So if you donate now, it'd be great. Just a little bit. I know you're burned out on politics right now. Nobody wants to give money, but our money, we're putting it to work. As you heard already, we're going to be investing in candidates like Abigail Spanberger and whoever gets the Democratic nomination in New Jersey, as well as state delegates. You already heard 2 of our candidates in state delegate race in Virginia. Lots more of that to go. We got to fund Travis's work to help good people elected. And then the other button I want you to go to is our take action button. You see right here, it says take action. You click on that, and that's where you can really get involved. When we start ramping things up for these candidates, when we start God forbid we have to get your help to show up at the state capitol or even the capital of the United States to protest, if you will, which I hate to say, but at least make our presence known. We often have press conferences, but we'd love to have as many veterans as possible come to our press conferences so we can make sure that our elected officials know that we are listening and we are watching. So if you want to be a part of those kind of actual actions that we're going to do as we face this new dynamic in the country, hit that take action button. You'll join our mobilized group and you'll find out more information, be a part of this. So I've made my plea. We've had a great evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. I'm glad to be back. We were a little out of sync tonight. We were all trying to figure out which buttons to push. And I've got the flu, so I sound crazy. And of course, JJ Jorgensen, who's our amazing producer that keeps us running. We thank all of you guys. Please be a part of it. Look, this is on all of us, guys. This is a no hand-wringing zone here at VoteVets. This is a no navel-gazing. This is a no defeatism organization. We have a fight ahead of us. We accept that fight because the nation depends on us to do our very best. So that goes to you guys. So thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe, and we will see you probably next week. Thank you so much.